بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Today inshallah we'll continue on with Tafseer Surah Al-Baqarah and continue on those ayat that's still talking about the munafiqeen. As we mentioned before, there were about 13 different ayahs talking and describing the munafiqeen. So today inshallah we'll continue from 17 to ayah 20, which are still talking about the same attribute and the same phenomena that happened in the Medina. I would like to share with you a good Qur'an recitation, so we'll start with that inshallah, with those ayat, and then we'll come back.
مثلهم كمثل الذي استوقد نارا فلما أضاءت ما حوله ذهب الله بنورهم وتركهم في ظلمات لا يبصرون صم بكم عمي فهم لا يرجعون أو كصيب من السماء فيه ظلمات ورعد وبرق يجعلون أصابعهم في آذانهم من الصواعق حذر الموت والله محيط بالكافرين
صدق الله العظيم. So the ayat are still describing the munafiqeen, the hypocrites, as we mentioned before. So just going through the first ayah and the translation, and then we'll continue on inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The ayah says, مثلهم كمثل الذي استوقد نارا فلما أضاءت ما حوله ذهب الله بنورهم وتركهم في ظلمات لا يبصرون. So Allah says, their example is that of one who kindled a fire, but when it illuminated what was around him, Allah took away their light and left them in darkness so they could not see. So the ayah start in describing those with an example. So the example or the method, or it's like a common saying, it is something used in the Arabic language a lot. The Arab are using the examples, or what's so-called a proverb. It's like a saying, it's a very famous saying or common saying that people use in it a lot to make the picture or the description is close to the people understanding. So as we said, it is a way, one of the Arab way that they're speaking, and the same way Allah as well is using the method or the example in the Qur'an in different ayat and in different surahs, so to make the image or to make the understanding close to the people's mind. Allah says in the Qur'an, وَتِلْكَ الْأَمْثَالُ نَضْرِبُهَا لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Those are examples that we bring it to the people so they can understand, they can realize, so they can think about it, meaning understanding the picture. So as we said, the examples or the proverb is used in many different languages, even the English language. They use in this, like an example of that. One of the common saying, they're saying, one bird in the hand is better than two on the tree. Like, basically that's a very common saying or example or a proverb that people use in it. Similarly, they're saying, don't bite the hand that feeds you. That's also another example that used in the English language. Similarly, the Arabic language has a lot, and the Arab people in the old days or even today's day, they still using the examples a lot. So one of the famous examples here I would like to share that's been very common in the Arabic language. It says عادت حليمة لعادتها القديمة. It's like Halima went back to her old habit. So this example been very famous among the Arab. The story of the example, Halima is the wife of Hatim al-Ta'i. Hatim al-Ta'i is one of the most generous Arab among the entire Arabic culture. He's a very generous man. In fact, he himself, he was a simple an example of the generosity itself. So his wife, Halima, was on the opposite. She was very stingy, was very cheap. That's her habit. And she was the opposite of him, even though he was the most generous man among the Arab. And they used to use his name describing the generosity. They say in Akramu min Hatim, more generous than Hatim. So Hatim is a symbol of generosity itself. So his wife was very stingy, especially when she made the food. Hatim was making food all the time to his guests, and she was not putting enough fat on the food. So you would wonder why people using fat or eating fat. In fact, in the peninsula, in the desert weather, in this environment, the only food people have were meat, basically. Either they used to eat camels or sheep, or basically goat or lamb. This is their main food, besides some other stuff, and like the meat and those animal products like milk and yogurt and so on. So they used to love fat, and they consider the one who put fat on the food is a generous person. So Halima, his wife, was very stingy, was not putting enough fat. In fact, she was not putting fat at all. So people like Hatim's guests, they used to hate that. They never like it. So Hatim, in order to make her generous and change her habit, he told her a story. He said, they are saying if you add 1 spoon of fat on the food, your life will be extended for the number of spoons that you add. So basically every spoon you add, your life will be extended a day. So when she heard this, she started adding fat more and more to the food, and people were very happy with it, until she happened to lose one of her children. In fact, she lost her only children in her life. So she was very depressed, and she was not caring anymore about her life. In fact, they're saying she doesn't want to live anymore. So then she went back to her bad habits. So she stopped adding any fat. Then the guests of Hatim, or the people around Hatim, they said, عادت حليمة لعادتها القديمة. Halima went back to her old habit. This is a story of one of the most common saying or examples in the Arab culture. So just bringing here like how the example is part of the culture, part of the language itself, and the Qur'an also using the same way so the Arab would understand it. And in fact, they do like using examples all the time. So the example in the ayah that Allah brought here to make the picture of the munafiqeen clear. So he's saying those munafiqeen are like a person who was in the desert, and he make a fire to get the light out of the fire. So those examples, or those munafiqeen, similar to that person who set a fire to get the light of the fire. But whenever he got the light of the fire, Allah took that light away from him. So those munafiqeen, similarly, are when they declare Islam and they call themselves Islam, they actually got the light of Islam, and Allah called it فَلَمَّا أَضَاءَتْ مَا حَوْلَهُ. When the fire enlightened the entire area around him, not only for him, the entire area, which is, the ulama saying this light is the light of the Islam itself. So when the munafiqeen enter Islam, or at least pretending that they're Muslim, they got the light of Islam. However, because they are disbeliever in Islam, and they rejecting Islam inside their heart, Allah took their light away from them because they don't deserve it. So similarly, like someone set the fire to get the light of it, but Allah took that light away from him, similar to those who enter Islam, they got the light of Islam, but they don't deserve it, so that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took that light away from them. So the ayah said, took, like, فَلَمَّا أَضَاءَتْ مَا حَوْلَهُ ذَهَبَ اللَّهُ بِنُورِهِمْ. Allah took their nur. Now there is two things here in the ayah. There is daw and there is nur. The daw, basically it's a very high light, it's a very, very high illumination that makes it a daw. Now the nur, it's something smaller or weaker than the daw. Or you could say the nur is the initial of the daw. So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in some of the ayat of the Qur'an says, هو الذي جعل الشمس ضياء والقمر نورا. So he called the shams diya because the diya is very high light, and the nur, the qamar nur, because it's smaller light. However, the ayah says, ذهب الله بنورهم. Allah took their nur, meaning that Allah took the source of the light for them, or even the small light for them, meaning that He did not leave any light for them. They don't have not even a daw, which is the very high light that came out of that fire. No, even the source of the light itself has been taken away from them because they don't deserve it, because they were kuffar and they rejected to follow the right path. So this is a great description of those munafiqeen with this example. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put it in a very pictorial description to make it close to the people understanding. The ayah is صُمٌّ بُكْمٌ عُمْيٌ فَهُمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ. And the ayah described those munafiqeen as sum, which are the deaf and mute who cannot speak, and blind who cannot see. And the ayah says صُمٌّ بُكْمٌ عُمْيٌ فَهُمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ. So they will not return to the right path. So the ayah describing them as صُمٌّ بُكْمٌ عُمْيٌ doesn't say صُمٌّ and bukmun and umyun, or summun wa bukmun wa umyun, because if he said so that could be understood in a way that some of them are some of them are deaf, and some of them are mute, and some of them are blind. But the ayah said summun bukmun umyun, which means all the munafiqeen, they have all these descriptions, which means all of them are summun and bukmun and umyun. So all of them are deaf and mute and blind together. So together they have all these descriptions. So it's a very accurate description to them. It's very, it show how this nifaq make them having all these attributes together. So the ayah, it's very accurately describing their status and describing their situation. And then at the end it says, فَهُمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ, which means they will not go back to the right path. Now, if there is a one who's deaf and mute and blind, so he has no communication with the outside world, so how can he go back to his way or his path? Obviously, he will never be able to go back to his way because he doesn't have all source of communication or all senses of communication. So that's why the ayah describing that they will never go back, because they've been punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of this misguidance, so they never go back. Then the next ayah, it says أو كصيب من السماء فيه ظلمات ورعد وبرق يجعلون أصابعهم في آذانهم من الصواعق حذر الموت والله محيط بالكافرين. So the ayah says, or like a rainstorm from the sky, within which is darkness, thunder and lightning, They put their fingers in their ears against the thunderstorm in fear of death. But Allah is encompassing of those disbelievers. So this is another type of munafiqeen. So because the ayah start أو كصيب من السماء. Now this is another example though, and this another example apply for another type of munafiqeen, because the munafiqeen are not exactly the same level, are the same type. So there are different type of munafiqeen. So this example here, which is another picture Allah making it to us to show another type of people. Now those type of people, they have a hesitant in their heart. Those munafiqeen, let's call it, they're not pure munafiqeen. They still have some hesitant in their heart, still have some suspicious in their heart. That's why Allah gave this description to their status or their situation. So it says, أو كصيب من السماء. It's like a rain from the skies that has barq, like thunder and lightning and darkness. So this is like how when the rain comes in with a thunderstorm. So they, because of those dhulumat, now the dhulumat that mentioned in the ayah, or darkness, those actually, some of the ulama say, these are the darkness inside their heart. So that's why Allah make it a very similar example, because to make the image completely fit their description. So the darkness of the rain is similar to the darkness of their heart. Now they're saying also this darkness represent their suspicious and the kufr and their hypocrisy in their heart. So the darkness and kufr and suspicious is described in this dhulumat, the word dhulumat, which are the darkness. The thunder, basically the thunder is something very scary. So this also describes the scariness inside their heart, because those munafiqeen, they fear and they have scare in their heart. That's why they fear to show their actual belief or their actual faith. So that's why they have this fear in their heart. So that's scare or fearness in their heart described with the ra'ad. The ra'ad, something that's very fearful. So that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described them with a similar picture. So their heart have the darkness and have the fear together. The barq, which is the lightning here, actually it's the lighting of the iman itself. Now this is something little different than the other type of munafiqeen. So those munafiqeen, they do have some lighting of iman, some lights of the iman in their heart. So they're not fully kuffar or disbeliever. They do have some light in their heart, but that light comes like a thunderstorm, like a lightning coming from the thunderstorm, which is very, very momentarily, and it disappears automatically after the thunderstorm goes away. So subhanallah, the description describing their believing, their feeling inside their heart, very accurate description. So to make the image of that thunderstorm image similar to the image of the belief inside those munafiqeen hearts. The next ayah continue describing those other type of munafiqeen, which are the ones that have some hesitant in their heart and instability in their iman. So the ayah says, يَكَادُ الْبَرْقُ يَخْطَفُ أَبْصَارَهُمْ كُلَّمَا أَضَاءَ لَهُمْ مَشَوْا فِيهِ وَإِذَا أَظْلَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ قَامُوا وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَذَهَبَ بِسَمْعِهِمْ وَأَبْصَارِهِمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. So the ayah says, the lighting almost snatch away their sight. Every time it lights the way for them, they walk therein. But when darkness come over them, they stand still. And if Allah had willed, He could have taken away their hearing and their sight. Indeed, Allah is powerful over everything. So the ayah describing them that the lightning could take away their sight because it's very, very strong and very powerful. So Ibn Abbas says the strength of the light here represents the strength of the Islam, the power of the Iman. So the Islam, because it's very clear and very powerful, it could take away their heart. So describing Islam here with the lightning or the barq from the sky that's coming on earth. So those people, just to make the picture very clear, so those munafiqeen or those type of munafiqeen, whenever they have a lightning, meaning when they have a light in front of them, and here the light represent the Iman, the Islam itself. So when they see the light of Islam, they follow it. كلما أضاء لهم مشوا فيه. Whenever they see the light of Islam, they follow it, they like it, and they proceed. And whenever they have the hesitant in their heart, when they have the suspicion in their heart, then the darkness come over. And then they will stop because they don't know where to go. They have their uncertainty and they get lost basically when the light of Islam go away. So it shows that the contradicting inside their heart. They have a problem in their heart. They follow Islam sometimes, they like it, and then when the suspicious comes over their heart, they will stop and then they will back up, and so on. So this show you the contradiction of those munafiqeen inside their heart. So the ayah described very precisely what they have in their heart and what they have in their belief. So there is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ showing here example of the light or the nur. He says, يُعْطَى النَّاسُ النُّورِ بِحَسَبِ إِيمَانِهِمْ. So the people will be given their nur, their light, based on the level of their iman. So the people with the high level of iman, their light or their nur will be lighting almost miles for them. When the people have a lower level of iman, they have lower or distance of lighting. When they have lower iman, they have lower distance. Until you have some people with the low level of iman, they just have a light in front of their arms or in front of their foot. So basically they have lighting just surrounding them because their level of iman is very small. Until there are some people, they have no light at all, they have darkness, which are the pure munafiqeen. So that's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. In fact, there are ayat in the Qur'an describing the level of light for the believers in the life after, in the Yawm al-Qiyamah, in the Judgment Day. Allah says in the Quran, يوم يقول المنافقون والمنافقات للذين آمنوا انظرونا نقتبس من نوركم قيل ارجعوا وراءكم فالتمسوا نورا. In the Yawm al-Qiyamah, when the munafiqeen, when those hypocrites, they ask the believers, they follow them, they please them, please give us some of your nur. So they انظرونا نقتبس من نوركم, wait for us to get some of your light, some of your nur. So the mu'mineen or the believer would tell him, go back and look for your own light. Basically they have no light, they lost their light, they lost their nur, and that will be their punishment as well. They have complete darkness in the life after. Another ayah where it talks about the believers, Allah says in the Quran, يوم ترى المؤمنين والمؤمنات يسعى نورهم بين أيديهم. When you see the believers of the mu'mineen, when you see the believers of the men believers and women believers, their light is proceeding before them. So it's like a light basically proceeding in front of those believers, and that's their own light that they deserve it because they were believers in the life after, because they were believing in the dunya as well. Another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ about the light of the mu'mineen, he says, من المؤمنين من يضيء نوره من المدينة إلى عدن. Some of the believers who are their lights from the Medina until the Yemen. Imagine how big their light, that means their level of Iman, it's a very high level, so their light is very like reaching to Yemen. And some of them, their light is lower and lower and lower and so on, based and depends on their level of the Iman. So the ayat, in fact, the scholars said that from this hadith, they say that even the Muslim can have some of the nifaq in his heart. Now, this nifaq doesn't mean a kufr or a disbeliever. It could have some nifaq in some Muslims' hearts based on their level of iman. So, and they actually use the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he says that, or before actually the hadith, they're saying the munafiqeen are two types, and some of them are pure munafiqeen, and there are some munafiqeen, they have levels of nifaq in their heart. And they use the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is the hadith sahih, that says أربع من كن فيه كان منافقا خالصا ومن كانت فيه خصلة منهن كانت فيه خصلة من النفاق حتى يدعها إذا اؤتمن خان وإذا حدث كذب وإذا عاهد غدر وإذا خاصم فجر. So we mentioned this hadith before, that if someone has 4 attributes in him, he is a pure munafiq, which are, and if he has some of them, he has some of the nifaq. And he mentioned alayhi salatu wasalam, that those attributes are, whenever he speaks, he lies, whenever he entrusted, he will betray, whenever he make a covenant, he will break it, and whenever he quarrel or he has a heated argument, he will behave in an evil way, an insulting way, which means very tough on his opponent. So that's one, another, like the 4th type of attributes that will make someone among the munafiqeen. So as we said, the ulama says some people could have some nifaq in their hearts. However, this nifaq is not about the kufr. It's not, does not make the Muslim or the believer a kafir. Therefore, for example, when Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu anhu, like one day, he was walking with a janazah for one of dead people of the Medina. That's when he was a Khalifa, when he was Amir al-Mu'mineen. So Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman, which is the secret holder of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he grabbed Umar and he told him, sit down, don't walk with this janazah, this is one of them, meaning this is one of the munafiqeen, of the hypocrites. So Umar, when he heard that from Hudayfa, he stopped, of course, and then he asked Hudayfa a very interesting question. He said, نشدتك بالله أنا منهم, like, I'm asking you by the name of Allah, am I one of them? And then Hudayfa said, لا, like you are not one of those munafiqeen. ولا أبرئ أحدا بعدك, I will not clarify anyone after you, because it was a secret that Prophet ﷺ gave it to him, and he is not supposed to give it to anyone. So, but here's the thing, imagine Umar is asking Hudayfa that if he was among of those munafiqeen, it doesn't mean that Umar will be a kafir, but Umar, because of his nature, that he could think that he if he does anything small, he could be one of the munafiqeen. If you remember, one day Umar, he said, لو نادى مناد يا أهل الأرض كلكم في الجنة إلا واحد لما أمنت مكر الله. If someone called the entire people on earth that all of you go into the Jannah except one, I would think that this one could be me. This is Umar radiallahu anhu, and that's his way of level, and this is his level of iman. Even though we know he is one of the 10 people that they have the glide tiding of the Jannah, however, Umar is one of the people thinking that he always very scared of the hellfire and always thinking of the life after. Now, I think this is a good lesson to us, so that we should learn from Umar ibn Khattab. Not that we'll be among the hypocrite, but at least to be very careful that anything could be counted on your account, and that's why we need to be very, very careful, at least to protect ourselves from the hellfire, inshallah. Now, they said, just to continue elaborate on this, that yes, some Muslimin or some believer, they might have some of the nifaq, but that doesn't make them a kuffar. But this nifaq is not inside their heart, meaning they don't have the kufr inside their heart and they expose the iman. No, they do have the iman inside their heart, but they have some of those attributes that mentioned in the hadith. And Imam al-Nawawi, for example, says, Ikhwatu Yusuf, the brothers of Yusuf, they have this nifaq because they were they promised their father and they break it and they lie to their father. So they have some of those attributes of the munafiqeen. Does that make them kuffar? They're not. They were believers, but they have some of the attributes of the nifaq. So they have used this an example that some of the believers, they might have some attributes of the nifaq. However, the Prophet ﷺ warned us from those attributes to be very careful and to pay attention to our actions. So the nifaq could be in your action, and that's why what they call it the nifaq al-a'mal, which means you could be a hypocrite in your actions, even if your heart fully believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but your action could have some actions of nifaq. And this is just to summarize the description and the attributes of the munafiqeen. And the next ayat will be talking about different subjects, but here those ayat are finishing the description of the munafiqeen. Inshallah, we'll continue on next week with the rest of the ayat that will have a different subject and a different focus and different highlight. And we'll stop here, inshallah, and next week we'll continue on with the Tafseer of Surah Al-Baqarah. Jazakum Allahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.